So if we kick things off, um, just a couple of ground rules. I'm sure most people have been on these calls before, but if we could just ask everyone to keep their microphones muted and their cameras off, it just helps with the recording. We're incredibly pleased to introduce Malcolm from Superrod and Mike from Happy Electrician. They've both been providing electricians and empowering electricians to have better lives, whether that's helping with burnout, helping with stress, or helping in other ways. The discussion we had before, they were saying this talk is not only for electricians, it's going out for contractors and other people within the industry. So thank you very much both, and I'll leave it over to you.
Hi Tom, thanks for the introduction. As I say, I'm Malcolm from Superrod, and I'm accompanied by Mike Jones, a business coach who's been working with us for quite some time now. And I just wanted to sort of kick something off to get us started and everything. As I say, primarily we've been working with electricians on their well-being and coaching their businesses, their mental health, and empowering them to live a better life. So just to get an idea of who we've got in the room and everything, could you do a quick virtual show of hands to see those who are on the wholesaling side to start with? Okay, and can you raise your virtual hands for those who are on, say, the contracting side of the business? And I guess the rest of you all fall in the middle somewhere. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. So this is who you're speaking to, Malcolm Duncan. As I say, I'm the MD of Superrod. For my sins, I've been in the business for over 40 years. My father was a contractor, so technically that would probably be 50 years. But that would include the first few years just crawling under floorboards as a school child and everything, helping my dad on a weekend and everything. And as Mike kindly put there, even though my business is based in the UK, I'm now running it from the south of France, which is a subject most people seem to focus on and everything. Mike, can I just hand you over to say a couple of words?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for attending today and for giving us your time. So my name's Mike Jones. I started my professional life in the military. So I was in the British Army for 5 years, Army Intelligence. I did a couple of tours of Afghanistan attached to the Special Boat Service. So that was interesting and eye-opening. After that, I travelled for a few years, lived with monks in Nepal and Thailand, worked on fishing boats in Australia, then decided to come back to the UK and get into business about 10 years ago. And my first business, I'll talk about this a little bit later when Malcolm and I talk about business, but basically I got really, really stressed from owning a business, more stressed than I'd been living in Afghanistan or working on deep sea fishing boats. So I realized there's some uniquely psychological, challenging things that happen when you go into business. And if you don't understand them and navigate them, they can make you quite unhappy. So then I wrote a book called The Happy Business Revolution, based on how to have a business without being miserable. And then I started working with Malcolm's team, and then Malcolm and I subsequently have founded the Happy Electrician. That's me.
Cheers, Mike. Yeah, it's been an interesting few years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a good partnership.
Right, so Happy Electrician, as I say, founded late 2024, early 25, and really it'll help if we just get into some of the drivers for that. For me personally, as somebody who's been in and around the industry and everything, it probably started at one of the EIC functions at a Powerball many years ago, and they were delivering the messages that you see up on the screen there. And these, unfortunately, are statistics that don't seem to go away. So we were just driven by a need that, what can we do to kind of prevent people getting to these situations, that, the stories behind these statistics. So as I say, that is our why. From my perspective, as I say, been in the industry sort of over 40 years, seen it from a contractor's point of view. I've worked in the wholesaling side of it. I worked for the manufacturer, and then ultimately I've ran my own business. Every one of those experiences has thrown up different pain points, different challenges, led to a multitude of mistakes over the 40 years. And, you know, hopefully I've learned a lot from those. And, you know, that's given me the belief there that if we can just share some of those lessons learned over that time, backed up by some superb processes that Mike's brought into our lives and introduced and everything, ultimately that leads into the how. And a lot of it is, you know, I've put down there, stripping down the noise to focus on what matters. Because I think a lot of stress that we come across is, I think it's maybe magnified a little bit today in social media, but I think it's always been there, is the pressure to live other people's lives. You know, we live and run our lives to everybody else's expectations, and we maybe don't often strip it down and really look at what is our personal goal, what is important to us, and that's what we'll get into. And as I say, there'll be a couple of takeaways from this session today, because I think, you know, otherwise everything just disappears and we get caught up on the ether. We go back to work this afternoon and we forget what we've got. So we will actually leave you with a couple of solid takeaways there, and then it's over to you guys to decide how you're going to use them. Okay, over to you, Mike, for a bit. You're muted, Mike.
26, we still have to tell people they're muted every day on virtual calls. So I didn't ask Malcolm's permission to put this slide in, but I put it in last night because I think it's a really important part of the of our journey that I think will help other people relate. So I know not everybody in here is a business owner, but I think what a lot of us will relate to is that when you're passionate about a thing, you work in it very hard, but that can also lead to stresses and difficulties in your life. So Malcolm and I both have a love of business, and we both suffered because of that love. I kind of put my personal life on hold for 5 years in my first business because I thought that's what I should do. And I was telling myself the story that if I work really, really hard in this business and put everything else on hold, then I'll have an amazing life in the future and I can spend more time with my partner and being healthy and all of that stuff. And obviously Malcolm and I have both done that over the years with our businesses. Not anymore, but we have done in the past. But I work with a lot of employees as well, and I think the same thing happens in our careers. Like, we tell ourselves this story that if we're passionate about what we do, then we should put everything in our personal lives to the side to prioritize that. And it's a short-term strategy, and it leads to you potentially sacrificing the things that matter in the present moment, and your health and your lifestyle and your relationships for the thing that you're passionate about, which might be your career or your work. And it means that the thing that you love ends up being something that becomes detrimental to your life. So what we want to help other people avoid, whether you are business owners or hardworking professionals, is letting your passions and your hard work come to the detriment of your life. And we want people to realize that you can have a great business or a great career, a great lifestyle, and great health all at the same time. You don't have to sacrifice one to do one of the others. But I do think that with the time in which we live and social media and hustle culture, we can end up walking around with this mindset that the only way we get ahead is by, you know, just focusing on career or just focusing on business and putting everything else on hold. And that's a mistake, in our opinion. Next slide, please, Maestro. So there's 4 things that we focus on with our clients and our community members in the Happy Electrician, and it's thinking about all 4 of these together that help you really actually enjoy the journey of life. And whether you're in business or not, you know, many people in here are in careers, it's still important, I think, to think about all 4 of these having to work together. So we've got to think about our mindsets, and we've got to work on our mindsets. We live in a time where, I mean, put your hand, raise your virtual hand if you think you're exposed to a lot of negativity online and in life in general at the moment? Just give us a virtual hand raise. Whoa.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're seeing all the hands going up, right? Yeah. So
That was quick.
yeah, they're all going up. It says 12 on some. Is that the total? I don't understand if you put 12 hands up or. So we live in this time where we're all exposed to a lot of negativity, but it's really interesting. I mean, if you read the book Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell, which is the UK about 80 years ago, it makes you realize how amazing our lives are right now. And although we do have lots of things going wrong, which is definitely amplified by social media, the lifestyles we've got today compared to what our grandparents and great grandparents had is out of this world. Like, they would not believe the quality of life that we can live, that we have work-life balance, that we can sit in our offices at home and work from our computers, that we can travel around the world. So it's really important that we are working on our mindsets, because life is definitely part of what we make it. And if we look around and we buy into all the negativity that's around us, we can tell ourselves a story that life's rubbish. But if we're really honest and we're really rational and we really understand our lives at the moment, we can look around and be like, oh my God, I've got so much opportunity available to me. And that's on a big scale, but it's also on an individual scale. So I'm a business owner, and a lot of business owners get stuck in, or people in careers get stuck in, oh, what's going wrong? That person's ahead of me. I'm not making enough money. So and so is doing better than me. All of this stuff. But then we can also look around at all the positives. I get to go and walk my dogs every day at 3:30. I can go on holiday without asking for a holiday. I work with people that I enjoy working with. I do work that I enjoy doing. So there's always things that you get what you focus on. So a really important thing that we work with people isn't just how do you make your business better, or how do you make your life better, or how do you make more money, or how do you get healthier, but it's also a big part of just how do you appreciate what's going on around you right now, because there's loads of positives, and you've got to be able to vaccinate yourself against social media and the news, because it forces you to kind of focus on negativity when there's loads of positive stuff going around. So that's a big one. Community is huge. Like, again, I'll get people to put their hands up. Put your hands up, your virtual hands up, if you feel like you don't spend enough time around friends, family, and other people in person. Put your hands in the air if you think that you might be a bit guilty of that. Yep. So lots of hands going up again. And one of the things that the digital age has given to us is amazing opportunities. Like, we can all sit together now, having this conversation. I get to share my story with you, Malcolm gets to share his story with you, and I'm sure that you're all over the country, and maybe there's people in different parts of the world. I think somebody was saying they're in Mexico at the beginning of this call. So that's incredible. Like, it's absolutely amazing that these things can happen. But also it can lead to us not spending enough time just being around other people and enjoying being other people's company, without a goal, without a focus, without it being work. Maybe just going to the gym, or just going and playing paddle, or whatever it might be. You can see my age and my mindset that it's the gym and paddle. But there's ways that we should spend time with other people. And if we forget that because we're so busy doing and on the computers and on our phones, it can lead to us feeling quite unhappy. There's a great book called Blue Zone Solutions by Dan Buettner, and he looks at the world's longest lived communities. And one of the key things they recognize in all these communities that are the longest lived, where they have the most highest volume of centurions, people that live to 100 and over, so they've all got strong social connections. And there's the Harvard longevity study, which is one of the biggest studies ever done on longevity. And actually, one of the most influential factors on how long you live isn't your exercise levels, or your diet, or if you smoke or not. It's how strong your social connections are. So we've got to make sure that we don't forget this piece. Lifestyle, I think we have an amazing opportunity, all of us now, to live incredible lifestyles. But if we're not disciplined and we don't forge them, we can actually end up having this opportunity to live a great lifestyle, but living a very unhealthy lifestyle, i.e., and we all do it a little bit, not going out, sitting on our phones, just living a sedentary lifestyle, not traveling, not going and having experiences. So we've got to do this. And then obviously your business or your career, you've got to have a plan and structure around that. So that's what we focus on with our community, making sure that we don't just focus on this. Malcolm has a salty taste in his mouth when he sees things like the 7-figure tradesman kind of businesses, which is all about, and these things are right for some people, but this is all about money. How do you make as much money as possible? The approach that we take is, well, how do you be happy? And do you need to make loads of money? By the way, most self-employed electricians do need to make more money, and they need to be more profitable. But is that the only goal? Or actually, can we focus on all 4 of these things? So that's our kind of philosophy and our ethos. Next slide, please, Malcolm. And the way that we make this work in the Happy Electrician is through a combination of things. So tools and resources, so you know what you're doing with your health and with your business. Quarterly planning, so that does that community piece, but it also helps us focus on what we want. And then we have these 2 pieces as well around like the monthly mastermind and the WhatsApp group. And again, that's community. Like the biggest thing with that is actually just bringing people together, making sure that people feel like they've got somebody to share their problems with. Again, let's do another hand raise. Put your hands in the air if you think you spend too much time stressing about problems that you could probably just talk to somebody else about. Looking, what percentage of people have we got?
Still a big chunk again, mate.
Yeah, so probably a third of people there put their hands up. So if you think about it historically, before the internet and before social media and before wireless and mobile devices, we were in communities and we talk about our problems, which is common, which is now a thing that we can buy called therapy, right? But we used to talk a lot. We used to talk about our problems, and a problem shared is a problem halved. So we used to talk a lot. We used to be in communities. I used to live in Nepal, and you know, it's a poor country, so people don't really have phones. They didn't when I was there, certainly not as I'm sure they do now, but there wasn't loads of mobile phones. There wasn't good internet connection. We'd often not have power. So like everybody's in a social community, and although the quality of life based on material wealth is lower, one of the things that stood out to me when I lived in Nepal was how much happier everybody was and how much more relaxed they were, because they're together, they're in community, they're talking. So even though they might have more problems in their lives, they're less stressed because they've got this community aspect. So this is a big thing with that we do with the Happy Electrician, but I think that we should all think about in our own lives is how are we getting social connection? Who have we got people around us that we can talk to and share our problems with? For professionals, are people in here? How many people in here are either business owners or in senior roles, like manager roles or senior roles in their careers? Just show us a virtual hand again. Yeah, so about a third. So if there's this weird thing that happens as you get to a more senior position in your career, if you're in like a managerial role or a leadership role, or you own a business, where you're always playing a role. So when you're at home, you're the partner and the parent. When you're at work, you're the leader. So because you're playing a role and you feel a level of responsibility, you're never actually around people where you can just be your true, honest and vulnerable self. So that's a really important thing to think about if you want to be as happy as possible, is that if you're only ever around people where you're playing a role, like as a leader, or you've got an element of leadership and management on you, and that definitely is the home environment, by the way, if you're a parent, be conscious that you might not be around people where you get to share your honest, vulnerable self and have conversations and go out of your way to try and make that happen, to try and find that. Beautiful thing about these guys is they're all business owners, so they all just share their challenges, whereas obviously they wouldn't share it with their clients. A lot of them don't want to share it with their husbands or wives because they feel they've got to provide and be strong. So make sure you've got a community around you where you get to talk about how you feel and share your problems and not feel like you need to hold your problems back. So what we'll go on to now then. So what I've tried to do there is kind of give you an insight into what we do with the Happy Electrician, but also help you think about how you can apply that to your own lives. Because whether you're an electrician or a business owner or a manager or an employee or a 20-year-old, we all want to be happy. We're all human beings and we all want to be happy. And there's some fundamental principles that enable us to be happy or contribute to our happiness. So actually everything we talk about here with these guys is applicable to all of us in this room, regardless of where we're at. So try and think about like the broad principles and how you can maybe apply them to your own life to increase our own fulfillment and happiness. So if we go into a couple of mindset pieces now. So this is a mindset thing for me. Is I think happiness is a discipline, and I think in the UK we deliver the wrong message around this, and this is all opinion, so please feel free to disagree. But I think in the UK we have a slight kind of lean towards telling people and making people believe that we deserve to be happy, which we do, but that it should be given to us. And I don't think I think happiness is earned, and I think it comes through discipline. And I think we feel happy as individuals when we are tapping into our unique strengths and using that to contribute to others, but also living a life that's aligned to our values and enjoying ourselves. And I think there's a balance there. And the key thing to understand, certainly that I learned from the monks, is that it's a discipline. Like, happiness doesn't just happen to you. It's a result of living a disciplined life. And I'm not saying, you need to sit and meditate every morning and never smoke and never drink and never eat chocolate. I'm not saying that's that, but we need to have focus in our lives, and we need to be structured around what we want and what is important to us, so that we can live our lives intentionally. And what happens if we don't do that is, I think, we live other people's lives. We live the lives that other people want us to live. And we'll also, due to the natural hardwiring of the human brain, we'll put our own needs and fulfillment to the side to please other people, and then we end up kind of not feeling very fulfilled in life. So it's really important that we recognize that, for us to be happy and feel fulfilled, we have to have some discipline in our lives, which leads me on to the next slide, which is some of our principles. And I've been working with leadership teams now for 7 years, not including my time in the military. And over that time, my focus is, whoever I work with, is I want you to do a good job, and I want you to enjoy it. So I don't want you to be a high performer if that's making you miserable. I want you to be in a role where you're creating a win-win. So you're doing great in your job, because most of my time in my business is actually working with leadership teams or business owners. So over the years, I've noticed that we're kind of saying the same things over and over again to a lot of different people, and they make big shifts. And one of the most common things that we end up talking about with business owners, with leaders, with individuals, with students, I do talks at school sometimes, is the concept of being sensibly selfish. It's very British. It's a very British cultural thing to be modest, to avoid discomfort, to play ourselves down. It's a British thing. Like, if you ever go to Thailand, the Thais love to barter. We find it awkward because we're taught any kind of conflict is awkward. So it's a cultural thing. But we're certainly taught to be modest and to be humble and to kind of play ourselves down. And I see why that's useful to an extent, but I also think it's quite harmful. And what I see a lot of is people feel guilty about prioritizing themselves. Put your hands in the air if you're a parent. Give us your virtual hand if you're a parent. I'm a parent to 2 dogs and two children-in-laws. Stepchildren, should I say. Okay, so about half the group. Okay, so if you put those hands down, put your hands in the air again. This is to the parents and to the non-parents. If you consciously sacrifice your health and your own life to try and provide for your kids or for other people, put your hands in there. So Tom Hoffman's hand went up super fast then. He was ready to click. Yeah, so I'd say at least half of the group are putting their hands up there. Now, your brain might be going, what's this guy talking about? Like, we find happiness by providing for others, and I completely agree. And I don't have my own children, but I have lots of friends that do have children, and they say that nothing compares to the fulfillment that you get from having and providing for your children. But what I see a lot of is with parents and with professionals is people are not just putting effort in, but sacrificing their own health and fulfillment to try and provide for the business, to try and provide for the kids, to try and please the manager or whatever it might be, or please the boss. And to me, that's a really poor strategy, because what your kids want is to be inspired by a happy parent, a healthy, happy parent. You want them to grow up wanting to be like you. You don't want your kids to see a parent that's constantly stressed and burnt out because they don't make any time for themselves. Now, I know there's going to sit scenarios where that's difficult to do, so I don't want to play that down. But where possible, I think we need to develop the mindset of being sensibly selfish. And what I mean by being sensibly selfish is prioritizing yourself so that you can be of the most use to the people around you. Prioritizing yourself so you can have the most positive impact on the people around you. There was a study done on a group of nurses in the UK, and nurses are notorious. So I doubt we've got nurses in here. We've got nurses in this, or any ex-nurses? Any hands in here? No. So so nurses are notorious for having poor health because they're caring people, and they put their career and not their career, but looking after caring for patients above themselves. And behavioural psychologists have tried loads of different things to try and get them to stop doing this, essentially, to look after themselves better. And the way that they got a breakthrough with these nurses to actually drive long-term behaviour change was to link the impacts of them being healthier to their ability to provide better care. So this is what I mean by being sensibly selfish. Don't just prioritize yourself because you want to do that, because you might find that difficult. If you don't, great, go and do it. But if you're like sacrifice yourself for your kids a lot, well, then think about how you prioritizing your health and your work-life balance and time for you and going on a date with your partner and all these things that are important. Think about how prioritizing that will then help you be a better parent. And then all of a sudden your brain starts to change the way it thinks about and prioritizes these activities. If you see it as, I will be a better parent if I'm going on dates with my partner at least once a month or once a week and getting to the gym, and I'll live longer so I can be with my kids for longer, or increase my chances, your brain then sees it as a necessity because you can see the benefit of doing it. Whereas if you see it as, I just need to provide for my kids as much as possible and I'm the second most important thing in this thing, you won't prioritize yourself, and then you're going to not be as happy as you can be, not be as energetic as you can be, all of that stuff. So we've got to be sensibly selfish. And if that's the only thing you take from today's talk and you go away and you think about that, I think our job is done, because we've got more people understanding that you need to prioritize yourself to have the most positive impact on the people around you. And it's the same for careers, right? If you really are I love my business, and I like what the impact that we have for our business on the other businesses, on owners and on their teams. I love the fact that when we work with them, they get better results and they're happier and they're enjoying it and they've got better work-life balance. But because of that, and I'm guilty of doing this, I can fall into the trap of putting my own life on hold and my own gym routines on hold and eating a good food, all of that on hold, because I'm so busy with the business. So I have to remind myself of this as a discipline to overcome my kind of innate human programming. So we've got to be sensibly selfish, and I feel like I've laboured that point. But what I want to do now, and this is actually Malcolm's idea, is I'm going to pass on to Malcolm, is a couple of exercises to actually. So I think a lot of you would have hopefully listened to that and been like, yeah, that makes sense, I need to do that. What I'm going to do now is pass over to Malcolm, and he's actually just going to take you through a couple of activities that will help you not just think about this, but actually start to make it a thing in your head by doing some specifics. So this is some of the stuff that we do. I do this with all my clients, but this is some stuff that we specifically do with the Happy Electricians, but it will be applicable to everybody that's on this call. So I'm going to hand over to Malcolm now to do a couple of exercises with you. You probably just need a pen and paper. It doesn't need to be neat, but having a pen and paper will help you get some out of this. If you're more digital and tech savvy, you might want to write it in your notes. But I'll pass back to Mr. Malcolm Duncan.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for that. And as I say, a lot of the examples Mike was giving there will go back to our electrician group. But one thing we've learned is the electricians are just a small subset of society. They face exactly the same challenges that the rest of us face. And to be fair, the next slide I'm going to share was one our group actually helped us pull together, because we were talking about things in principle. And we were looking at, we spoke earlier about pressure points and the challenge of, being sensibly selfish. But until you actually know what to be selfish around, and you can call selfish, you can call it focus. A lot of people really, myself included, and probably most of the people I know, had never actually sat down and thought, right, well, where actually am I going? Or what actually is the point, or what would a great life look like? And so one of the things Mike and I share is a love of process. We love doing things right, but then we could spend an hour talking about how fulfilling our work with different communities has been. But if we don't actually give people any tools to actually achieve that themselves, we think that's a massive failure on our part. So this is what we've kind of developed probably over the last few years. And as I say, we put a little note there. There's a guy in one of our groups called Sam, and he kind of like helped us distill this. But it ultimately boils down to breaking your life down into 4 main sections. We can't hide from finances. Finances, to a degree, influence the choices we make. They influence the stress levels that we hit in our lives. They're real, and I think any plan around living a better life and not acknowledging the finances, I think is just, to be honest, naive. Fun, probably the biggest neglected part of what we look at when we look at our life planning, because we focus on the finances and lots of other issues. Freedom can be interpreted across many aspects. People could say, freedom for me is the ability to step away from my business and let my own management team grow and be the best versions of themselves, without worrying about what they're going to do. Freedom can be a wide range of things. One of our guys in the group just really wanted to get to the stage where he could pick up his child from school. He's working all the hours that he could, and his young child had been at school for nearly 2 years. He'd never done the school run, and that was something that he was really beating himself up over. And just, I'm a bad parent, etc. Can anybody relate to those sorts of issues? When you start to look at yourself, and I think the last part of that is the fulfillment level. It's actually, how do you feel? You walk down the street and you ask people a question. Oh, how's it going? Yeah, okay. Well, kind of, to be honest, okay, it's fine. That's okay, but I kind of think we all aspire to a little bit more than okay. We kind of aspire and we deserve a better life than okay. But until we actually start to think about how we're going to achieve that, we start to need to think about what the difference between an okay life and walking down the street. Hey, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm doing good. How do we make that transition? And I think until we actually spend some time thinking about what okay, good, and great looks like in terms of some of these 4 disciplines, it's very difficult. Because I actually think, as Mike said earlier, if we compared our lives now with that of our grandparents, I go back to, when I lived with my own grandparents for a little while, to get the heating on, I had to go out into a backyard, get some coal, shovel it into a coal fire, and then, clean the fire at the end of the day, etc. Now, if our Wi-Fi is down and we can't control our central heating, we're kind of getting super stressed and we don't know what to do. It's all kind of, it's all relevant. So I'm not saying we should go back to shoveling coal to keep warm on a day and everything. But just want to ask in the group, has anybody actually ever spent the time to sit down and actually forward plan and just actually quantify what their okay, good, and great life does look like? Mike, you can't count because we do this on a regular basis. Yeah, we've got the stone silence here, which doesn't surprise us because we're all usually too busy just living life to actually work out where we are on this trajectory and everything. Another question out there then, who in the group actually thinks that if they took half an hour to an hour just sort of scribbling this down and started to fill this out, feel that they'd actually feel more positive than they do prior to filling that out? Raise your virtual hands. That's good. The numbers are going up. So you see, it's about aligning your expectations and understanding what you want from life. And I think we don't often pause and take the opportunity to do that. The good news is we will leave these templates for you to download at the end of today's chat and everything. But one of the things I want to share some sort of personal experience on this, and it's going to take me on to the next slide. This does not need to be a perfect plan. it will need, as Mike calls it, directional correctness. That sounds like a military term to me. Plans change, situations change, your aspirations change. What's important to you changes. And I think the reason that most people don't even attempt something like this is because they overthink it. Finances, I need to earn this. Fun, what is it? Overthink it. It's really, when I filled this out for the first time, I just stared at a blank piece of paper for way too long. And then, to be honest, when I started to actually write with paper, and there's a small tip there, and Mike mentioned about those who are digitally expertise, we revert to a keyboard. Doing this with a pen and a piece of paper flows so much more naturally for a lot of people. You're not thinking about how you spell words, you're just scribbling around. It could be drawings, it could be anything, but just taking the time to actually pause and have that physical interaction. And you're ultimately writing a bit of a life plan here, but don't view it like that, but don't overthink it. Finances, it could be, I need a little bit more, I need a little bit less, why, whatever. And one thing I would encourage for anybody who's part of a family unit, don't be afraid to actually do this with your partner, with the other members of the family and everything as well, because I think it actually opens up some really important discussions. Because as we were talking about earlier, we might feel a whole amount of pressure to have a more significant contribution on finances than we actually have. But then when you go to and you speak to your kids and your wider family about this and say, to be honest, I'd rather Dad was picking me up at school than ending up with so many presents at Easter, Christmas, or whatever that I can't remember what they are by the next event that comes around. You can reframe a lot of expectations around this by actually having a dialogue and a discussion with those around you and everything as well. So as I say, we've got a real simple process there, but as I say, when you do start to fill it out, one, please do not overthink it, and two, revisit it. There may be an external change in your life that warrants you revisiting it, or personally, I probably revisit mine probably 3-4 times a year, to be fair. Some of that is because Mike nudges me to do it, but to be honest, I'm just curious to see if the expectations have changed, if different things are aligned, what the family's expectations are, etc. So as I say, there's a simple template there for you to follow, and as we mentioned earlier, happiness isn't as right. It's a discipline, and so you do have to put a little bit of work into it. But on the last point there, the fulfillment, once you actually get this, it actually acts as I think a bit of a release valve, a pressure valve, because you've actually aligned what's important to you. Pardon me, but you've also shed a lot of the stuff that fills your life that actually isn't important to you as well. Okay, Mike, back over to you now.
Thanks, Malcolm. There's a couple of questions in the chat, so we'll give a quick answer to those now, and then I think we'll try and, what time are we on? 22. We'll try and leave like 5-10 minutes at the end so that we can do some Q&A as well, potentially. So the first one was from Michael Lease, which is, when faced with competing pressures of profit, performance, ethical responsibility, how do you ensure your own well-being isn't overlooked? Do you want me to answer that, Malcolm, or do you want to
go? It's not an uncommon question. I would probably flip it back to you. How do you feel you can deal with all those issues you're following if you haven't looked at your own performance first? If you haven't looked at your own well-being first? What is your ability to deal with all these other things if you ignore your own well-being? That would be kind of my perspective on it. It has to start with you. I'm saying absolutely useless to help others, or the ability to help others is definitely linked to your ability to help yourself. I think, you spoke about that earlier.
Yeah, I think it's a really important distinct thing to recognize, that your performance or the performance of your business or your career is directly kind of correlated to how you feel and your energy. So it's kind of seeing, I always say to people I work with, if you had a factory full of machines, you know that those machines need a service 3 times a year to keep running smoothly, you would service them 3 times a year to keep running smoothly. But when it comes to us as human beings, we don't think like that. We tell ourselves this fallacy that I don't need to, it's an option for me to be healthy because I can do it down the line, and I can just put it all on hold whilst I'm running the business, trying to get the career, whatever it might be. But it's a terrible way of thinking. So we've just got to remind ourselves that actually, if I want to get my results, if I want to hit my goals, if I want to live as long as possible, my health is essential. And we have got a couple of tools as a very specific tool that I'm going to share with you right now, which will also help with this. And then Jacqueline has said, what would you say to someone who knows what to do for their well-being but still struggles to follow through? Again, I think the next tool that I'm about to share with you will really help with that. So they're timely questions, and I think we've got exactly the right thing coming up now to help with that. So if you go back to that last slide, actually, Malcolm, please.
Yeah.
So we're human, believe it or not, human beings are hardwired to work hard. We like working hard. We like to contribute to the tribe. For hundreds of thousands of years, we were hunter-gatherers, right? So the life, if you look at the human history, like on a scale like that, the way that we live now is less than my fingernail. For most of the time, we were hunter-gatherers, living in tribes, just trying to survive every day. And the way that we stayed alive was by being with a community of people. And if we got kicked out of that community of people, it basically meant death, because you couldn't survive the wild on your own. So our brains have developed these habits that contribute to that. And one is to be a hard worker. Like if you're contributing to the tribe are going to like you and keep you in. Whereas if you're just eating all the food and not doing anything, the tribe's going to kick you out. So we're actually all hardwired to want to be hard workers, to want to contribute, to want to feel valued, which is great. But what that can also lead to, as Mike's alluded to, and Jacqueline, is, well, even though I know this, I'm still working all the time, what that can lead to is just working really, really hard and then sacrificing everything else, like our health. And I think, again, if you think for most of human history, work was activity, and we only had healthy food to eat. And really, when it came to nutrition, the biggest issue we had was having enough food. But the food that was available to us was whole food, and we were active every day. So our hardwiring to be hard workers contributed to us being healthy and physically active. Fast forward to today, this tiny little time in human history, much of our work is sedentary. So that tendency that drive to want to be a hard worker actually comes to the neglect of our health. And again, if you think back to most of human history, we didn't have to separate work, health, and personal life. All of that happened as one. Whereas now we live in this weird time, if you look at the whole spectrum of human history, that work is its own block, health is its own block, family time is its own block. So this is why I return to, we need to know that happiness is a discipline, and so is health. But we also need some tools to override some of our historical human programming, because our brains are hardwired to tell us to just work all the time, and that will lead to a healthy, happy life. But what that leads to in the modern world is work all the time means you don't see your family and you're not healthy. So we've got to firstly make peace with, that's just how the mind is hardwired. It's not a fault with Jacqueline, it's not a fault with Michael, it's not a fault with Malcolm or Mike. It's a human thing, it's a conditioning thing. So we need to be aware of that and be like, okay, that's part of my brain, but how do I stop that coming to my detriment? And for that, we need a couple of tools. I'm going to share you the one that Malcolm just shared with you is really important, because we need to be sensibly selfish and get clear on what we actually want in life, because that's going to drive us to take daily and weekly and monthly actions that contribute to the life we want. If we're not clear on what we want, we'll just let other people tell us how to live our lives. And if, often in a business, that's going to be, or as an employer, that's going to be, can you do more work? And we'll just go, yeah, of course, I'll work on the weekend, I'll do that. So that's the risk if we haven't got a clear plan of what we want from life. Like, we just live our lives trying to please other people and make money for companies that want us to do certain things, right? Or marketing and sales is driven to manipulate us to spend money on things that make people more money. So we need to be aware of that. So I'm going to share a tool with you, but just before I jump into that tool, I want to share with you some insights from a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. So this is a book written by Bronnie Ware. So she worked in palliative care for many years. So people, living in their final weeks and months. And she wrote a book on it about the most common regrets of people in their last, when they know that their life is coming to an end. And I think the first two are really, really important. And I think just reading these now will help us all think about how we're going through life. So the first one is, I wish I'd had the courage to live my life rather than the life that others had expected of me. So again, that returns to that plan thing that we did. I haven't made these up, by the way. These are taken out of the book. That returns us back to what Malcolm said. We've got to be intentional. We've got to draw a plan for what we want in our lives. Like, where do we want to be with fun, fulfillment, finances, and freedom? Do you want to be taking your kids to school on the school run? Well, okay, maybe that's not possible at the moment, but let's write that down as an important thing to us, because it will help us negotiate our lives to enable that. So we have to be clear on what we want. And then the second one, which is very pertinent to what we're talking about right now and some of the questions that were asked in the chat, is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. So we're hardwired to work hard, but most people, when they get to the end of their life, look back and say, I wish I hadn't just worked so hard. So I think, I'm not going to read the rest, but I think we all need to be conscious that, okay, we're hardwired to work hard. Okay, in modern life, if I just work all the time, it's probably going to lead to me missing out on a lot of stuff that I shouldn't be missing out on. So we need some kind of systems. We need some kind of tactics to help us override our human hardwiring, our brain hardwiring. And one of the most simple but effective tools that I actually developed for myself, which is now in corporates around the country and businesses around the country, is a tool called the Cadence Calendar, which I'd like to share with you now. Sorry, Malcolm.
Yeah, no worries. Just to add to that, it might be in all these highfalutin places. It's also on a lot of fridges as well, Mike.
Yeah, so we give these out for our community as a fridge magnet. So obviously the key thing, but you guys don't have to do that. You can just print this out as an exercise. But we give it out as a fridge magnet, so it's in your face, so you see it every day. So again, this is designed. I actually designed this for me, and then I train like the Travelodge headquarters team, so all of their managers have got this now, and then all the happy electricians and all my clients I work with for small businesses. We do this with all of our managers and leaders. So the Cadence Calendar is a very simple tool, and it does two things extremely well. Most of us, when we're setting goals, and we're, typically around Christmas, when we've had 2 weeks off work and spent time with our families and eaten too much chocolate and turkey, we all get focused on ourselves, rightly so, and we set all of these lofty goals for the year, and then by the end of January they've all gone because we overloaded ourselves with stuff to do, got back into bad routines. So the Cadence Calendar should be done every quarter, every 12 weeks, and the first thing it does is it stops you trying to overcommit to new stuff. Right, because when we do that, we just can't do it. So it forces you to go, okay, well, if I wanted my life to be better, what would be 2 things I do on a daily basis for the next 3 months that, if I could develop as a habit, would make me a happier, healthier, more fulfilled person? So we do that on a daily, weekly, a monthly, and a yearly. And then these are really important. So we do this every 12 weeks. And then you've got these 2 down here. I tend personally not to focus on the monthly, but I do focus on the quarterly. And my partner weaponizes this against me if I'm letting myself slip. So my tendency is to work more and justify not going on holiday because there's more work to do, there's more money to be made, there's more problems to fix. And what this does here, this quarterly something different, is it makes it very stark and obvious if I've gone 12 weeks without getting out of my routine and just going and doing something new. And my partner weaponizes this against me, actually. so if we go a quarter, we haven't done anything, she's like, we've not done anything. And by seeing it visually, she's right. And it's like, I'm forgetting to enjoy my life and go and do nice things because I'm justifying to myself that I need to be working because of that hunter-gatherer, hardwired 200,000 years of brain evolution working a little bit against me. So for those of you in relationships, married, with kids, this is really important to do. So every 12 weeks, you want to try and plan to do something new and give yourselves a little slap on the wrist if you haven't done something new. And you want to review your daily and weekly and monthly non-negotiables. And Malcolm, if you flick to the next slide, I've just put a couple of examples for you all to kind of see what this could look like. So let's say that you're doing a lot of what we're doing right now, sat down looking at a computer screen, and your steps are low. So maybe getting 10,000 steps in a day could be a daily non-negotiable that you focus on. Just getting 3 meals in. So you want to just think about, and don't just copy what I've written, but because you can have this as a download after the talk, but you want to think about, what do you actually want? What's important to you? You want to go back to that plan that Malcolm talked about. And then you want to go, okay, well, I want to be healthy and I want to be an inspirational, energetic parent to my kids. So what's a couple of things I could do on a daily that's going to help me get towards that? What's a couple of things I could do on a monthly that's going to help me get towards that, or weekly? My partner and I completely neglected my relationship with Laura in my first business. And I knew that I didn't want to do that, but due to how my brain works, I might do it again in my new business, which this business I started 6 years ago. But so one of the things that we did at the start was we said, well, we both like working. We're both hard workers. We often will work in the evenings because we work less in the day, so we can go and walk the dogs and stuff. When is that unacceptable? And we're like, but you know what? If we have one date night a week where we just no phones, go out for a meal, then we don't mind if we're at the gym and working a little bit in the evenings for the rest of the week, as long as we get that. So we do that as a non-negotiable, and now it's just I don't even have it on my cadence calendar anymore, because it's just a habit that we've built in our lives. We have another one like every which isn't on here, but every month we're actually boring, so we don't want to have more. We want to have at least 3 weekends in a month at home because we like to just relax on the weekends and be boring. So that's one of our monthly non-negotiables, that we only have 1 weekend most of the time where we'll go away and do something different, but we want 3 weekends where we just sit at home and relax and go to bed at 7 o'clock on a Sunday. So this is the way, especially Jacqueline, this will help with you and Michael. This is the way that you take your plans and you make your improving yourself and your habits feel more achievable and less overwhelming. You might say go to the gym 3 times a week in here, but you do your cadence calendar. You put it somewhere you can see. If you've got a partner, do it with them, and then it makes it feel manageable, and it reminds you, these are the habits that I want to focus on for the next quarter. So it's a little bit of mindset, being sensibly selfish, making it a priority. It's a little bit of planning, getting clear on what you want from life, doing the 4 Fs. And then it's a little bit of strategy and system, which is, okay, let's stick to this. And you do those 3 things together and you'll start seeing habitual change in your own life. And then the beautiful thing that happens when you do this is that at the end of the quarter, even if you haven't been perfect with it and you've made those changes, your brain realizes that, oh, wow, I fit these things in, I feel healthier, and I've done better at work, and I've done better in the business. So then your brain starts to go, oh, this stuff actually pays off. And then it becomes the flywheel gets going. You get like compound interest. Your brain's like, well, let's do more of that. Let's do more of that. So that's a system that really helps. So Malcolm, if you just flick forwards, please, to 2 slides. Yeah, so the worst goal that you can have in your life is to be healthier, more. It's to not be specific, right? So that's why you want to go through the process that Malcolm and I have talked about. And the reason that a lot of people won't do this, by the way, is because it's effort. I started this talk by saying it's discipline. You know, you need to sit down for half an hour, print these sheets off and write them down and think about them. And your brain's going to be going, oh, you ain't got time to do this. There's loads of other stuff you should be busy with. Because you don't like to be sensibly selfish. So it's a discipline. Like if you want to have a healthy, happy life, if you want to if you want to make progress, you want to spend time in the gym or whatever it might be, spend time with your kids, like you have to be disciplined to make that happen. And you have to be specific. So that's probably my biggest kind of lecture point on this. And then just because I'm conscious of time, so if we can just flick forward just to slide 25, Malcolm, please.
24 or 25?
25, yeah. So yeah, we'll show 24. So 24 will give you, this will be, maybe you've cut some slides out. So if you go, yeah, so I'm not going to go through this now, but this is just returning to the point of being specific. So when you're like trying to get clear on what you want to try and turn your goals, like I want to be healthier. You want to turn that into specifics, even if you're scared of whether you can achieve them or not. Try and be specific, because as soon as you get specific, like if you look at the get into good shape one, instead of just saying I want to be healthier, if you said I want to be healthier and that looks like lighter than I am now. I can fit in this size pair of jeans or dress. I can run this thing in this time. And again, don't just copy these, but think about things that are pertinent to you. It could mean that I can play for an hour with my kids without getting knackered, you know, whatever it might be. Try and be specific on what you want, and then your brain can actually lock in and find the ways to achieve that. If you've got woolly goals, you're very unlikely to actually make them happen, and you'll end up doing a lot of the wrong stuff. So again, this is a discipline. Like, sit down, get clear on what you want, make it specific, even if the goals scare you, and you'll find the right pathways. We've got the QR codes, Malcolm.
Yeah.
So hopefully you found that interesting, and your brains are starting to like save some of that information and maybe think about things in a different way. If you want the tools that we've shared with you in today, so the Cadence calendar, the Good Life Planner, and there's some other stuff in there as well that might be relevant, might not, but I'll put it all on one page. So you just click this, if you just scan this QR code on the left with your phones, that will give you access to all that stuff. And then if you'd like to find out more about the Happy Electrician, if you are an electrician you'd like to join, or you'd like to talk to us just to generally find out more about it, sponsorship opportunities, or just tell me more, if you scan that one on the right there, that will just open up your phone to drop me a WhatsApp, and then I can put you in contact with Malcolm if you want to talk about partnerships. I can hook you up to our social media if you just want to follow the journey. But please do feel free to drop me a WhatsApp by clicking that or scanning that link there, and let me know what you thought of the talk today. If there's something else that you'd like us to send over to you, please feel free to drop us a message.
Okay.
And then I guess if you just leave that up, Malcolm, but then we'll go, I don't know if you do Q&A at the end. I don't know how that works. Tom's uncameraed, put his camera on, so I guess Tom's going to give us some idea.
Yeah, so if anyone would like to share any comments or any questions in the chat, please feel free now. I just want to say a huge thank you, guys, to both of you for sharing kind of your insight and your journey. I really liked that term, sensibly selfish. I think it's sometimes a bogey word that we hear kind of shy away from being selfish. I think it's really important. So thank you for that. I just wanted to ask you, kind of what improvements have you seen in your life while following this advice? Have you got anything kind of that you could share that you've noticed on your journey?
I suppose I'll answer that first and everything. I think, yeah, but I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, I'm actually speaking to everyone from the south of France now, and that's where I live. So you could say the actual effect of that has been, you know, quite dramatic. But just seeing the impact that we're having on different people's lives, whether I look at, you know, and all the team who work for my business have been through this process. You know, all the guys in the Happy Electrician have, and it's just, I think there was something on one of the slides there about the book Mike was talking about, and it talked about living the life that you wanted, not the life expected of you. And I think that's just such a powerful mindset, because, you know, we all get, we need the next, you know, I need the next promotion, I need the next career advancement, or I need to employ another 10 people in my business to grow. It's actually just realizing when enough is enough, and working out what's important to you as an individual, and then you know, to those around you that are important as well. So, you know, that would be my personal experience, and you know, I'm not sure I would have got to that level of clarity in my life if it wasn't by going through this process.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in the chat. Shall I just answer quickly? Do you want me to answer your question quickly, or go to the other ones?
Yeah, no, thank you. If we could go to the other one. Ezra asked, how do we manage not working too hard in the cost of living crisis when everything feels more expensive?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't think there's an easy answer, because obviously everybody's circumstances are different. But I think one of the most important things you can do is get clear on what's important to you, and what's important to you that isn't driven by finances. So if it's really important to you that there's a thing called squeaky wheel syndrome, and it's basically like the loudest wheel gets the attention. So if we know that there's a cost of living crisis and we know everything's going up, that gets all of our attention, and rightly so, you know, it needs its attention. But if it's really important to you, for example, to spend more time with your children, to be healthier, you've got to be really clear on what that looks like. So don't be specific. So like, I want to take my kids on the school run 3 days a week, or I want to be able to have 2 nights a week where it's just me and the kids. So I'm making this up. And when you get clear on those goals, and you get specific about them, your brain then has room to focus on that, as well as all the paranoia and fear and worry and genuine, you know, fear about money as well. But you might find clever ways to not either have to make as much money, to save money. There might be ways to save money, because the easiest way to have more money is to save money, is to spend less, isn't it? Which again, I know is easy for me to say. But yeah, it's thinking about ways of, if you're clear on what you want outside of things that are just related to money, you'll probably find ways to make that happen, is my high level answer.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the okay, the good and the great life, and actually rationalizing what is super important. And as like I said, everybody's situations are very, very different, and I get that. But if I look at the people we've worked with, that resounding reevaluation of what's important, you know, it can be, as Mike said there, the quickest way to earn more money is to actually spend less, and then we realize where we're spending it and things like that as well. I know that's easier said than done, but it goes back to that okay, good and great life evaluation and stripping down what's important.
There's another really effective exercise you can do. So just for context, when COVID came along, I just closed my first business down, and then my partner Laura got made redundant, and we had a mortgage. So we're like, oh, this is concerning. But one of the things you can do is you can decatastrophize. So a lot of us hide from what the worst case scenario might be, and then we have this sense of anxiety and ease. Whereas what me and Laura did was we sat down and went, what is the worst case scenario here? So you play that out. So like, I can't get my new business working, Laura can't secure a new job. Okay, what's the likelihood of that? And if let's just say it does, and it was unlikely, but let's just say that does happen, well, then we've got X amount of time until we can't pay the mortgage. But then actually in COVID, they then put mortgage breaks on, didn't they? So they changed the law that you couldn't kick people out. So actually when we looked into it, we're like, okay, the worst case scenario isn't horrendous and it's unlikely, but we have thought about it. So that can help as well, because if you've just got this anxious feeling around the cost of living's going up and money's going down and there's a war in Iran, but we're not clear on what that means to us, I think sometimes we just resort to, I'm just going to work more because I'm worried, but we're not being specific about it. So again, that can help. I did notice Jacqueline had put a question in before that as well. Don't know if you saw that, Tom.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Jacqueline said, thank you for the talk today. It was really engaging and I've come away with a different perspective. I particularly found the cadence calendar interesting. I was just wondering how you would turn a vague goal like more life balance into something specific using that framework.
Yeah. So really good question and really common. You need to be clear on what more balance means to you before, like, Malcolm and I can't answer for you really. We can give you guiding principles, but first of all, you need to be like, well, why do I need more balance, or what do I think good would look like? So is it just more mental time switched off from work? Is it less time at work, more time with the kids? Is it more time in the gym? So you got to get specific on what that means to you. And then once you are clear on what those things would be, then you want to try and put, and it will be rudimentary at the start, but you want to try and put some targets on it. So people will say to me, I want to spend more time with the kids. And I'll say, well, how much? And I'm like, I don't know. We'll make up a number. And then they'll say, oh, 3 nights a week. And then they're like, actually, I don't want to spend that much time with my kids. No, I'm only joking. But you put some numbers on, and then your brain's got something to work with. But like the goal of more balance won't work because it's too fluffy. So you've got to try and like reverse engineer, maybe think about what great balance looks like for you, and then try and reverse engineer some measures and some specifics. But as soon as you make a goal specific, your chance of actually achieving it goes up by about 60%.
I think that the feeling of satisfaction when you do achieve it is like massive as well. And again, for any of you guys who are interested in knowing more, Mike did a really good podcast about goal setting and everything a few weeks ago. It might be worth digging that out and putting it in the chat or circling it around, Mike, because there's 2 sides of goal setting. There's the focus it brings, but then there's the if you beat yourself up because you didn't hit exactly 100% of that goal and everything as well, and how you use goal settings and perspective and everything. It was probably one of the best podcasts I've seen you put out, Mike. So that's definitely a good touch point as well.
Yeah, please feel free to share that in the chat. I would like to thank everyone for attending as well. This will be going out on our website, so please feel free to share it as well. And again, just a huge thank you to both of you. The talk was excellent. I've definitely taken away a lot, and I think you can tell from the chat that a lot of people have as well. So again, if I could just ask everyone to leave the session, otherwise it continues recording. But again, just a huge thank you to both of you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot.